son to football practice. I need to be out the door here in 10 or 15 minutes. While he's getting ready, I thought I'd take this opportunity to touch base on my supplementation, give you guys a little bit of an idea of my thoughts on supplementation, what I use, what I take. Most of you who know me will know that I'm not terribly big on supplements, just in the sense that I don't think they're an absolute necessity. And I don't think you need to take 10, 12, 14 different supplements to make your progress the best that you can. I do believe in a handful that I think are important. So if I take a look here and show you guys what I have. Obviously, everything I get is from True Protein. I'm a True Protein sponsored athlete, and I have a blend, the Team Skip blend through True Protein that I not only put together myself, but I use for, I started using it for pre-contest actually 3-4 years ago, and just decided to pretty much use it all the time for all my protein needs. So I have a few flavors up here that I like. I'm rather partial to the chocolate orange, so I'm going to be making up my drink here in a second with that one. I already have my oats in here. I don't like to blend my oats into my drinks and make them like into a powder. It tastes a little bit better, but at the same time I try to have my food be as solid as I can, so that, you know, if it takes a little bit longer to digest, that's always a good thing, instead of just running through me and I'm, you know, hungry 30 minutes later and blood sugar levels have fallen off, that sort of thing. So I'll mix up 2½ scoops in here with my oats, and I need to get my vitamins around as well. Usually with my drinks, I don't take but a couple things. I always take my niacin. Niacin is crucial for me because I usually have a high HDL, and I get a blood panel done at least once a year and usually twice a year. However, the last one I had done, my HDL was pretty low, and after I thought about it, it occurred to me that I was relying on a B complex that I had several months ago that had a significant amount of niacin in it. Thought that that would be okay, and it really wasn't. There were a couple other things that factored into that as well, as far as supplementation, but it wasn't vitamins and that sort of thing. So I've made a few changes, and one of them, like I said, is putting niacin back in. So I will also use a B complex to get the rest of my B vitamins in this meal. I always throw in milk thistle. It's just a good idea all the way around, depending on what your supplementation is, whether you're competing, that sort of thing. In this particular one, I won't use an aspirin. My niacin is not flush-free. It's not as effective for what I need it to be if it's flush-free. So I use the regular, but it is time-release, and they're pretty strong at 500 milligrams. So if I take the first one during the day, it won't flush me, and I'll tolerate it pretty well. Then I take the second one, and it's like I have got me really bad sunburn. It's incredibly uncomfortable. More so for me because I have lingering nerve damage after getting shingles in 2003 after a show. I have what's called PHN, or post-hepatic neuralgia. So the nerve branch that was attacked by the virus when I got shingles was this one here, and because of the flush that the skin goes through when you get too much niacin, it amplifies my pain, that nerve pain, so bad that it's difficult to sleep, it's difficult, quite frankly, it's just difficult to function. So what I do is on the advice of my doctor, I take a aspirin about 15 minutes before my second niacin dose, and I rarely feel it flush. And that allows me to get a gram of niacin a day, which of course helps out. I also have red yeast rice as well that I supplement twice a day. I take that with, right now I'm using 2 carb meals outside of my post-workout carbs. So I take it with those 2 carb meals because one of the ingredients, of course, is rice powder. And I kind of feel like if I am going to take in rice powder in a meal, that there could potentially be a small spike of, as far as insulin, that sort of thing, I'm going to take it with my carb meals as opposed to the meals that don't have any carbs in them. I think it will actually, or does, decrease the response as far as the red yeast rice. So that covers the vitamins here. This is a couple times a day. I'm going to do usually do 3 shakes a day. I know some people say, oh my gosh, that's too much, you need to be eating more solid food. You know what? I do what works for me. It doesn't always work that way for other people. Maybe other people need more food. As I get hungrier, if I'm getting closer to a show, sometimes I will trade them out. On the same token, sometimes when you're really hungry before a show, some of this Team Skip protein can really taste like a dessert. So I try to keep at least 2 and usually 3, and I always alternate them. I never have back-to-back protein drink meals. And I also will come off of a protein drink meal like this and I will eat sooner. May only be a couple hours, 2 hours will pass before I eat my next meal, versus if I come off of a solid food meal, which of course will take longer to digest, and I might go 2.5, maybe even sometimes 3 hours before I eat the following meal. So one of those 3 protein drink meals, of course, is going to be a post-workout meal or post-workout nutrition. But even on the days that I don't train, I will still usually get 3 protein drinks in on that day. Some of the other vitamins that I take, just to give you a heads up, I of course use fish oil. Before I go to bed, my last meal is always calcium, magnesium. I use zinc because I'm an old man and I got to make sure that the elasticity of my skin stays young. Quite frankly, I'm starting to see the old man signs when I get real lean. Sometimes my skin just doesn't have the elasticity that it did 20 years ago. So it's important for me, gives me peace of mind, to get that zinc supplement in there to make sure that I'm not deficient at all in zinc, so that I can help my skin to stay as healthy and elastic as I can. What else do I have? Of course I have Coenzyme Q10. I always take that with my first meal. I do 200 milligrams. I don't want to say it's because I'm getting old, but you know, one of the things that really caught me with the supplement was they did a study and they showed that Coenzyme Q10 levels in the heart were very low for those people who had had heart attacks. So I figured, you know what, that's enough for me. I'm going to make sure I supplement it. It's an expensive supplement, sometimes $40 and $50 a bottle, but I think it's well worth it. If you're careful and you buy your vitamins, I don't want to say correctly, but if you pay attention to where to get them, I get a lot of mine at Walgreens. You can get 2 for 1 quite a bit if you pay attention to ads. And Walgreens is almost always doing at least one of their brands where you can buy one, get one free. When you're talking $30, $40, $50 bottles of Coenzyme Q10, that's quite a substantial amount of savings when you're turning that around and getting a free bottle. What else do I have? Of course I have vitamin C. I'm going to take 2 or 3 grams of that a day just to help with my immune system. Lecithin, of course. With my nerve damage, I feel that it, is insurance in a sense, that it can help with my, with my nerve and brain function, of course. B6, I take 3 or 4 times a day. Potassium, I always am careful to make sure that I get plenty of sodium, and I'm, at least in my foods, through soy sauce, iodized salt, things like that. Not a big fan of sea salt, only because, quite frankly, I just think it's kind of trendy. It's nice that it has a couple extra minerals in it, big deal. I just would sooner take regular table salt. It's iodized, and make sure that I get salt with most of my meals. Balance that out, of course, I have my potassium. Vitamin D has been crucial for me, thanks to Massive G. Listened to him 6-8 months ago, and as far as my immune system, I think it's important. I get about 5,000 units with my calcium and magnesium when I go to bed. So I know I was starting to get a cold at one point, which is when I looked into it. It seemed like they were reoccurring, and as soon as I took that vitamin D dose up, it really just wiped it out, and I just don't get those little nagging colds and that sort of thing like I used to. So, of course, like I said, garlic is always an important one as well. I make sure that I get that 2 or 3 times a day too. So that covers my vitamins, I think, pretty well. I do, of course, use True Protein's yohimbine when I'm dieting. Yohimbine hydrochloride. I'll take that twice a day. Usually take it when I get up in the morning and I start in on my coffee, because for the first 2 hours of the day, I don't eat food. Now, I've been doing that for quite a while, and I just saw recently that another trainer was discussing it on the internet and had cited some references backing up how crucial this was to your metabolism and that sort of thing, and that actually sometimes eating breakfast as soon as you get up can be counterproductive metabolically. And I had to laugh because I didn't know the ins and outs. I don't do a lot of referencing and I don't do a lot of research, but I do a lot of, excuse me, I do apply certain principles, and you know what, if they work, they work, and sometimes I don't really care why it is they work. But I decided a few years ago that what started out as just not having much of an appetite when I got up, that I would kind of stretch that. And logically, it made sense to me that be burning fat as a fuel source be no different than doing cardio on an empty stomach when you got up. So I just I kept with it, and I still do that now. In fact, even on the mornings where I will get up and do cardio, I will usually go an hour and a half to 2 hours even before I do the cardio. So I make sure that I get my yohimbine, of course, on an empty stomach. You don't want to take yohimbine with any carbs because it pretty much just negates the effect. So if you're to the point where you can only take yohimbine when you take carbs, or because you're eating carbs, then you might as well not even use it. My little rule for myself and for my clients with yohimbine is, if you did not take in carbs in the meal prior to using it, and you're not going to take in carbs after using it, then go ahead and use it. So right now I'm only using it twice a day. I start my day with a dose, I do my cardio, and then later in the day, after I get through my carb meals and I come back to my protein fat meals, then I will put another dose in at the end of the day. Another thing that I use is ALA, and I find it important on refeed days. It just packs away more carbs. Just bottom line, it's about as simple as it gets. So I've done the refeeding hundreds of times without it, I've done the refeeding hundreds of times with it, and now I don't prefer to do my refeeds without it. I've noticed that I'm not as watery and bloated the day or two after a refeed when I use my ALA. Myself, I like to use 300 milligrams, essentially because it's practical in the sense that that's the strength of the capsules. So I use 300 milligrams about 4 times, sometimes 5 times a day. I try to make it a rule, and I say a day, a refeed day. I try to make it a rule to have a dose of ALA before each meal, but I get to the point where I'm grazing on refeed days anyway. So I just kind of go with the rule that every 3 hours, every 2 to 3 hours, I get a dose of ALA. I don't use it on any other days. I don't use it in the off season. I don't use it post-workout for my carbs there. I really just don't see a need for it. My carbohydrate intake is not through the roof, but it really works well for me and has worked well for my clients on refeed days. So let me touch on, I got a few things down here. Actually, I have quite a bit down here. I like to keep a good stock or a good stash. That way when I do run into people, sometimes if I start to get a little more than I need, I'll take it to Armbrust and I'll ask people if they want to try something or use something to try to get the True Protein name out there as much as I can. I do use Augment in my workout water. A lot of my clients are going to know that because they do the same thing and I recommend it. Essentially, Augment is just a combination of creatine, like a creatine blend, beta-alanine, and AKG. So you get a little bit of the NO2 effect, that sort of thing. The creatine, of course, is always a positive. I don't like to take anything before I train, as far as a drink or anything like that, because I don't like to go into the gym feeling like I'm bloated. So drinking it in my workout water, and I usually have 2 to 3 liters of water, it makes it go down that much easier, and I don't have to think about, oh, I need to get this in, or I need to force this in. and just drink that water throughout my workout, and of course I'm able to get all my supplements in at that time. The other thing that I use, and I believe strongly in, are branched chain amino acids, and I use powder, again, in my workout water, 4 to 5 scoops, and I feel that that's important to help me get through what are, for most people, long workouts. I train usually almost 2 hours per session. So it takes me a lot of warming up, which you'll see in the training footage. Not necessarily because I'm old, but because I don't want to have the injuries from rushing through and getting into heavier weights and that sort of thing without properly warming up. So I'm not racing through the gym, and I got to make sure that I've got that energy, and I'm going to be getting through my workouts as strong with as much energy as I possibly can. The only other thing that I have down here, other than just extra bags of BCAA and another bag of Augment, that sort of thing, is I keep all my, and I shouldn't keep them here because they're within my kids' reach, and they get in here all the time, but it's the singles. I'm a freak for the Ocean Spray singles, sugar-free of course. I even have green tea singles, Crystal Light singles, you name it, I've got the flavor. I usually buy them 20 at a time. I probably only use 8 of them, and my rotten kids run around with the other 10 or 12. I find crap all over the place, little wrappers that weren't taken care of and that sort of thing. But it's convenient for me because I like to put a couple of them into my workout water to make sure. If anybody's had branched chain amino acid powder, you know that it doesn't taste terribly great by itself. So to add a little bit of Crystal Light or something for flavoring is always good. It also makes getting the water down, the amount of water that I take in every day, a lot easier as well. I shoot for 7 to 8 liters, not counting my workout water, so I'm getting quite a substantial amount of fluid every day. And if that's just plain water, it's difficult to get down. So I think that pretty much covers it. Obviously I have things like potato starch and waxy maize. I prefer potato starch to waxy maize, primarily because of the questions that have come up about waxy over the last year. I'm not convinced that it's as good of a product as potato starch. It may well be, but the questions that have popped up, I just thought, you know what, I'll go back to using potato starch, which is what I used prior to waxy, and it works fine. It actually even tastes a little bit better. Not much, but a little bit. And that's only post-workout when I'm in the off-season. When I'm getting lean and I'm dieting, I don't even use a post-workout carb source as far as a drink. All I use are branched chain amino acids in some Crystal Light, that sort of thing, until I get out to my truck after I'm done training, and then I get into my carbs and protein, which is usually, again, a protein drink, Team Skip blend. I don't differentiate between Team Skip being a slow protein blend and Whey Isolate being a fast one that needs to be after the workout. I used to do that. Logically, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I decided, hey, I'm going to start using my Team Skip blend the entire day, even post-workout. There's been no difference. On paper, I'm sure that it may not be, maybe it's not the best move on paper, but when you put it all together and you apply it, there's no difference. I don't know that maybe I haven't gained, you know, a 1/4 ounce of muscle because I haven't been using the right protein. It's silly. It's not, the difference isn't quantitative. It can't even be measured. So I'd just sooner keep it simple and use a blend that I know is very good and has my name on it, quite frankly. So that's kind of my supplementation there in a nutshell. It's an awful big nutshell. I didn't think it'd be but a couple minutes. But I guess that's the way it goes. I like to talk. That's my supplementation in a nutshell. So I'm going to get out of here. I got to get my son, get him out of here before we're late to football practice.